What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel an update to my long-awaited Melfi deck profile featuring the brand new Chimera support / illusion support, however you want to call it, fresh out of Duelist Nexus. Now, Melfi's a deck that I brought to my channel very early on in its life, and it was a huge hit for my channel. Honestly, it still holds up as one of the most viewed videos on my channel, and it's just something that I'm really proud of. I feel like I was one of the first people to play Guardian Chimera in my original Melfi deck list. Again, this was about a year ago now, right around when Battle of Chaos was released. I uploaded a Melfi deck list to my channel, and tons of people loved it. But Melfi has taken a bit of a break since then, at least on the channel. Obviously, there's been people still playing Melfi, but more as like a rogue deck. I've also seen a lot of people splash Melfi into Sprite variants. However, like, from the Sprite variants that I've seen, they literally just play like one caddy, one penny, and it's like, how can you even call that a Melfi deck? It's really not, but that's neither here nor there. I'm here to bring you today the absolute spice. This is something that I've been working on behind the scenes, and honestly, I wanted to upload this video next week, but I wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and just bring this a video out to you guys as soon as possible. So you guys are getting actually 2 deck profiles in 1 week. If you haven't seen my Earth's Arctic profile that I uploaded a couple days ago, check that out. Even if you think you won't like the deck, I guarantee you my profile may change your mind, because Earth's Arctic is actually really cool. And with all that being said, my name's Nick. I do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm working my way to 1,000 subs, and I'm so close, guys. I'm literally, at time of recording, I think like maybe a little over 30 subscribers away from hitting that 1K benchmark. So if you guys could subscribe, like the video, comment down below, it would absolutely mean the world to me, so I can continue bringing you guys really cool and unique Yu-Gi-Oh content like this. Because honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen a lot of people playing with these new Chimera cards, but I have yet to see anybody, and I mean anybody, splash them into Melfis, which is honestly one of my personal favorite decks. So with that being said, sit back, relax, grab some snacks, whatever you want to do, and check out this amazing 40 card illusion / Chimera / Melfi, whatever you want to call it, deck list. So of course, you know how we do things here on the channel. We will be starting with the monsters first and foremost. We are playing a playset of the brand new Mirror Sword Knight. This is a brand new illusion monster. So illusion is a brand new monster type that makes its debut in Duelist Nexus. This card is an infinite, like, mandatory 3-of basically. So it's a light level 4 illusion type effect monster, and it's basically the deck starter. Basically, as a quick effect, you can tribute this monster and special summon a monster from your deck that mentions Chimera Fusion, except a copy of itself. So think of this card kind of like a Lone Fire Blossom, but better because it is a quick effect. Because it's an illusion monster, the illusion monsters do have this like continuous effect across the board that states if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. So all of the illusion monsters share that same effect. And then also this card has a unique graveyard effect where when a monster your opponent controls activates its effect, while you control Chimera the flying mythical beast, quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard to negate that effect. So not only is this card like a Lone Fire Blossom of sorts, but it's also a monster negate in the graveyard, assuming you control Chimera the flying mythical beast, which all these cards are loosely based around. They're all retrains of Yugi's iconic Gazelle, the mythical beast monster from the anime. So you play a playset of Mirror Sword Knight to start things off. Then we're going to be moving on. We play triple copies of Big Winged Baphomet. Now this is a retrain of the old card called Baphomet. However, a lot of decks play 2 copies of this. I'm actually one of the few mad lads who I think is actually main decking 3, and I'll explain why as we get deeper into the profile. But this card is a level 5 Dark Fiend, usually the target you're special summoning off of your Mirror Sword Knight, and it's a, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a level 4 beast monster and or 1 Chimera Fusion from the deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except Fusion. So this card, basically upon its summon, lets you go +2, because you're searching not only a monster, but also a copy of Chimera Fusion. So it's a double search, which is really insane. There's very few cards in the game that give you that ability. And then also, if that wasn't crazy enough, if this card's sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can target an illusion monster in your grave and special summon it. Now that's an amazing reborn clause on this card. Just allowing you to special summon any illusion that's in your graveyard, in my opinion, is really, really strong, especially as we are going to be getting more illusion monsters in the future. So we max out on a playset of this card. Now again, I know most builds play 2. I'll explain why we're on 3 copies of this as we get deeper into the profile, but just understand that we are playing 3 for a reason. Moving on, double copies of Cornfield Codal and double copies of Gazelle, King of Mythical Claws. Now we're going to talk about these cards together. Cornfield Codal being another brand new illusion monster. This card effectively works by discarding himself from your hand. He can add any monster that mentions Chimera Fusion on it from the deck to your hand except himself. So Cornfield Codal, by discarding himself, can either search for your Mirror Sword Knight, your Big Wing Baphomet, or also your Gazelle. So this card effectively serves as like 2 more copies of any of those cards that you may need. But generally the combo works how you pitch Codal, search Sword Knight, normal Sword Knight effect, go into Big Wing Baphomet, and then you pretty much are off to the races from there. So this card facilitates a 1-card line, which is nuts. And just like Mirror Sword Knight, he has that same clause where if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. And just like Mirror Sword Knight, in the graveyard, he also has a quick effect where if your opponent, or when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card or cards you control, while you control Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard as cost to negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. So, very cool utility between these new illusion monsters. Not only are they like consistency boosters because they help you search the key pieces you need, but also them being disruptions out of the graveyard is just so free and really, really insane, in my opinion. Moving on though to the brand new Gazelle, King of Mythical Claws. This is a retrain of Gazelle, King of Mythical Beasts, but this card is really cool. It's a level 4 Earth Beast monster, and it states that if this card is normal or special summoned, we can add a level 5 Fiend monster or Chimera Fusion from deck to hand. In addition to that, if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, we get to add an illusion monster from the deck to our hand. So it's really nice that the fact that this card can also serve as a starter for us. Although Mirror Sword Knight is usually the one you want to see, but Gazelle is also really nice. And since this is a Melfi version of the Chimera deck, we can actually search Gazelle through cards like Melfi Caddy, which is really, really cool. So that's going to round out the Chimera package for this deck list. Now we're going to jump head first into the Melfi side of things. And one thing that I will say about this deck is that, again, unlike those sprite variants that just play like 1 or 2 Melfis, this is a Melfi deck. So we are playing the Melfis. In fact, the whole gang's here. We got 2 Puppy, 2 Caddy, 1 Wally, 1 Fenny, 1 Pony, and 1 copy of Penny for our main deck Melfi package. Now, all of these cards, as adorable as they are absolute menaces for your opponent to have to deal with. They're very difficult to play around without the proper setup. So let me explain. So all of them share the same type, attribute, and level, being Earth level 2 beasts. They all have very mediocre stats, but that's okay because realistically none of these cards are going to be battling into your opponent. Hopefully not. Now, they all have the same trigger condition. So across the board, well, I guess with the exception of Penny, let's exclude Penny briefly and we'll talk about these 5 individual monsters here. Because they all have the same trigger condition. And that trigger condition is, if your opponent normal or special summons a monster or monsters, except during the damage step, or if your opponent's monster targets this card for an attack, you can return this card to the hand, and if you do, you can do something. So that's their trigger condition across the board. They all have the same exact activation requirement. So basically, if your opponent plays the game, because they trigger whenever your opponent would normal or special, which, I mean, what deck is not doing that? I mean, unless your opponent's literally just like setting and passing turn, these guys are triggering, which is, like I said, it makes them very difficult to play around. But in Puppy's case, when he returns to hand, he allows you to special summon a level 2 or lower beast monster from your deck, except a copy of himself. Keep in mind, the monster that you summon off of him is not negated, which is absolutely insane. Then you have Caddy. when she returns to hand, she lets you add any beast monster from the deck to your hand. Basically, just being a generic beast toolbox searcher, which is really insane. Then Wally's one of the newer ones that came out of the Power of the Elements Melfi support. Now, Wally, while being, in my opinion, a very strong Melfi, I don't play duplicates of it the way I do Puppy and Caddy, only because if you resolve Wally once, you're going to burn through a lot of your names in the deck that Wally can summon, and that makes all the other duplicate copies of Wally kind of dead, in my opinion. So that's why we just play the one Wally. But Wally, again, when he returns to hand, he allows you to special summon 2 Melfi monsters from your deck with different names from each other except himself. Then Fenny, when he returns to hand, allows you to special summon a beast monster from your hand. So kind of similar to Puppy, how Puppy lets you summon a beast from deck, Fenny lets you do it from hand. Only difference is that Fenny doesn't care about level, whereas Puppy can only summon a level 2 or lower specifically. Fenny can let you summon any beast from hand, which is really cool. And then you have Pony. When Pony returns to hand, you can add a level 2 or lower beast monster from your graveyard to your hand, except a copy of Pony. So Pony's like your pseudo graveyard recursion. But in total, this is our Melfi package, including Penny, which we'll talk about shortly. But again, they all have the exact same activation condition, which again makes them very difficult for the opponent to play around, because once they commit anything to field, all these cards are instantly live, which is really, really nuts. And then again, the fact that even if they don't summon and they just try to go battle and attack into these, they also trigger, which again is just really annoying. So it's just free advantage all around, because they don't even like discard themselves or anything like that. Like they literally just return to hand, so you can use them again next turn. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about their last effect that each of them share, which is mind-bogglingly crazy. It is during your end phase, you can special summon this card from your hand. Each and every main deck Melfi, with the exception of Penny, has that exact same clause. So you don't even need to waste your normal summons on these cards. You can just do your, Chimera line, and then at the end phase of your turn, you can special Puppy, special Caddy, special Wally, special Fenny, special Pony if they're in your hand for free. Like, I can't describe to you how insane that is, especially when you go down your Chimera line that already rips a card out of your opponent's hand and sets up graveyard disruption. Like, it's a lot for the opponent to have to overcome, and the boards look extremely unassuming, which is what I love about it. Now that we've gone over the base Melfis, let's talk about Penny, because Penny was a newer Melfi that came out in the same set Wally did in Power of the Elements. Now Penny, unlike the others, which are all Earth, Penny's a water attribute, level 2 beast, and he's a tuner. Keep in mind, none of these other Melfis are tuners, but Penny happens to be one. And it states, if a face-up beast monster you control was returned to your hand this turn, except Melfi Penny, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, then immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon 1 synchro monster using only this card you control and Melfi monsters in your hand. So what's amazing about Penny is that whenever any of your Melfis triggered to return themselves to hand, automatically, if Penny's in your hand, he is live, because as a quick effect, during that turn that a Melfi returned, he can special himself and then immediately synchro summon into any synchro you want. The only stipulation is that you have to use Penny on field and any Melfis in hand, which is really nuts. So Penny allows you to synchro usually during your opponent's turn, which is insane. And in addition to that, here's another effect where during your end phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target a beast Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. So Penny is the only main deck Melfi that works differently from all the other aforementioned ones, but he is perfect enough to play as a one-of. And again, worry not about the one-of Melfis. We can definitely recycle them if needed. This deck has so much recursion, it's not even funny. So that is our Melfi package, and like I said, I'm really proud of the fact that we're able to play a decent amount of them, because I can't stand these decks that are like, oh, it's a Melfi deck. And you look at the deck list and they're like 1 Caddy, 1 Penny. And I'm like, that's not you're not playing Melfis. You're literally just playing 2 cards. This is Melfis. So hopefully you guys can appreciate that, that I took the extra time to actually include all the gang, with the exception of Rabby. But again, Rabby's a normal monster, so in the grand scheme, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, moving on to our now more what we would call tech choices. These are non-engine monsters that we play to help bolster the deck strategy. We are on double copies of Kalantosa, Mystical Beast of the Forest. Now this is an amazing card to summon off Melfi Puppy, and the reason for that is because he's a level 2 Earth Beast effect monster, and his effect reads as follows. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a beast monster, you get to target a card in the field and destroy that target. Notice that there is a lack of a once per turn clause on this card, meaning that if you can summon 2 Kalantosa in the same turn, each one will get to pop an opponent's card, which is really, really strong. And again, we can loop this card over and over again, and it's just, we basically get a free pop every turn off of this if the opponent doesn't stop it, which is absolutely hilarious in my opinion. Moving on, we play 1 copy of Kitty Tail, Mystical Beast of the Forest. Now this is a new card that recently came out of the Cyberstorm Access booster box, and it's a level 2 Earth Beast effect monster with the most adorable artwork I think I've ever seen on any Yu-Gi-Oh card. And this card is actually, I think, slept on. I have yet to see any Melfi list playing this card, and I do not understand why, because this card goes so hard. Basically, it's if this normal or special summoned, you get to target a beast, beast warrior, wing beast, insect, or plant monster in your graveyard. Excuse me. Send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard with the same original type as that monster. So this is basically a foolish burial for any of the aforementioned types listed in its effect, which I think is hilarious. And then if that wasn't bad enough, if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, whether that be by battle or by card effect, you can add a beast, beast warrior, wing beast, insect, or plant monster from the deck to your hand, except a copy of itself. You can only use each effect of Kitty Tail once per turn. This is another great card to summon off of Melfi Puppy, because you put it on the field as a chum blocker, and when your opponent outs it, whether that's by battle or card effect, it floats into basically anything you want from your deck to your hand, which I think is really cool. Combine that with the fact that it's also a foolish burial, makes this card a really big threat in my opinion. So we're teching 1 copy of this in the main deck, and so far I've absolutely been loving it. Next up, for the next tech card, is 1 copy of Undaunted Bumpkin Beast. This is a really cool level 2 Fire Beast effect monster that came out of Burst of Destiny. And it states, during the main phase, if your opponent special summoned 3 or more monsters this turn, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. You can only use this effect once per turn. Also, while you control no other monsters, this attack position card cannot be destroyed by battle. So this card is really funny because usually most monsters that special themselves from hand or grave like that banish themselves when they leave the field. However, that clause is nowhere printed on this card, which makes this card just a free recurable body, a 2k defender basically, that you can summon during your opponent's turn every time they commit more than 3 or more monsters to field. And if they out it, I mean, it helps keep you alive, and if they don't out it, it's just a free resource for you to have to start your following turn, which I think is really great. So this card has also been really fantastic to me. Another great target to summon off of Melfi Puppy, for example, or Fenny. Again, keep in mind all this stuff is searchable through Caddy as well, which makes Caddy very powerful. Up next, Hopper Squadron, because we like synchroing on the opponent's turn, so that's pretty self-explanatory. Also, this card is searchable as well, which makes it very threatening. And then we also play 1 copy of Doomstar Ulka. This is a brand new card that just came out of Duelist Nexus. It's a level 4 Wind Beast monster, which is searchable off Big Wing Baphomet, because keep in mind, Big Wing Baphomet usually searches for Gazelle Chimera Fusion, but if we don't need to search for Gazelle, we can search for any level 4 beast, which this card happens to be. Now what does it do? Basically, when 1 monster you control and no other monsters leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard, and if that monster is in the graveyard or banished face up, special summon it. Otherwise, special summon this banished card. And then it states, if this card is special summoned, you can make this card gain 1500 attack to the end of the next turn. So a couple things to digest here. Basically, while this card's in your hand or graveyard, it effectively serves as like a revive for any monster that your opponent outs by a card effect. So like, if they Raigeki, one of your monsters, in this, because there has to be exactly one, and no other monsters being destroyed, or leaves the field by card effect. So like, let's say they summon like a Mirror Jade, they go Mirror Jade banish, like your Guardian Chimera, for example, and you have this card in your hand or graveyard, you can banish this card to then take that Guardian Chimera and resummon it back to field. Or you could summon this card and have a free 3k beater to the end of the next turn. However you want to cut it. But what's nice about this is that the effect that it gains the 1500 attack applies whenever it's special summoned by any means. So if you have a Melfi Fenny on field, and Fenny returns to hand, and you have Doomstar Ulka in your hand, you could special the Doomstar Ulka off Fenny's effect, and because Doomstar Ulka was special summoned, it will gain the 1500 attack, making it a 3k beat stick that Fenny can summon from hand, which is really hilarious. So this card overall has also been very good to me in testing, and I have no complaints about it whatsoever. Moving on to now more of the board breaker slash hand trap cards you play. We main deck one copy of Alpha, the Master of Beasts. It's searchable off caddy, and this card is non-target, non-destruction removal. I don't think we need to say anything more about it. Then for our hand trap lineup, we are on triple copies of Skullmeister, followed by 2 copies of DD Crow. Now, these hand traps in particular, I run in this deck for several reasons. This deck draws and adds cards to its hand like no one's business, especially when you're resolving Guardian Chimera multiple times a game. I wanted hand traps that when you draw into them, they're live, no matter how many copies you draw into, because both of these hand traps lack once per turn clauses, which is really great. Also, I like the fact that Skullmeister is a fiend. Given that the only fiend we main deck is the Big Wing Baphomet, if we activated Chimera Fusion and needed a fiend for whatever reason, Skullmeister fits that role perfectly. He's also a really good hand trap, stopping graveyard effects, which is really nice. And then we have DD Crow, who is actually searchable off the Kitty Tail, because Kitty Tail can search Wing Beastmasters. And again, it's just a now once per turn card. Very cool in my opinion. And overall, I have no complaints about the hand trap lineup. So that rounds out the monsters that we play in the main deck. It's 30 monsters, and we're a bit heavy on the monster lineup because we main deck Guardian Chimera, and he needs at least 3 monsters to summon. So we want to make sure that we did have a decent enough monster lineup that we don't run out of resources and are not able to fuse, for example. So that rounds out the monsters. Again, 30 monsters in the main. Now moving on to the spells, of which we play triple copies of Obedient Scold. Now this card is insanely powerful. As long as you control no monsters, you get to special summon 3 level 2 or lower beast type effect monsters with different names from your deck. Their effects are negated and they're destroyed during the end phase, and the only restriction is that when this card resolves, you're locked into beast monsters for the rest of the turn. But that's not even a problem. If this card gets ashed, we don't really care because it's more bait than anything. But if it resolves, we go +3 in terms of field advantage, which is nuts. And then we can overlay those cards for an Xyz play, which is crazy. And then this circles back to why we main deck the playset of Big Wing Baphomet. Because if we special summon 3 beast monsters, well, 2 of those monsters we could consolidate into an Xyz or link play. But the 3rd monster, we could literally tribute to then normal summon our big level 5 Big Wing Baphomet and still get into our Chimera package that way by just literally straight up normal summoning Baphomet, which I think is cool. So that's why we play triple copies of Baphomet in this deck, because if we hard open it, it's actually not even that terrible, because there's a lot of ways that we can summon free bodies to the board that allow us to just be able to tribute summon the Baphomet for our normal summon that turn. So 3 Obedient Schooled. Up next, 3 Chimera Fusion. This card is really insane, brand new out of Duelist Nexus again to pretty much go full circle with the Chimera support. This is a quick play fusion spell that lets you fuse using monsters from your hand or field as material, including a beast or fiend. In addition to that, as long as you have a Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast on your field or in your graveyard, you can actually return this card from the graveyard back to your hand. And since this card is not once per turn to fuse, it makes this card very, very spicy, in my opinion. Now, it does have another bullet point where you can like banish it and special the original Gazelle and the original Baphomet, but those cards are not that great, so it makes no sense clogging the main deck with them, in my opinion. Moving on, 2 copies of Melfi Hide and Seek. Best continuous spell in the deck, just protecting all your beast monsters from card effect destruction once per turn each, and allowing you to target up to 3 beast monsters engraved with different names and shuffle them into the deck to then get a draw, which is really strong. So you just have infinite recursion with this deck, as well as protection for a lot of your really powerful beast monsters. Then we play 1 copy of Polymerization, just to have another way to access our fusions that doesn't strictly rely on Chimera Fusion. And then to round out the last card we play in our 40 card main deck is 1 Called by the Grave to stop those ever pesky hand traps. So that rounds out the main, like I said, 40 cards. Now we're going to jump into the extra deck. We played 2 copies of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. Now this card is brand new out of Duelist Nexus, and this is pretty much what you're going to be summoning most of the time off your Chimera Fusion. It requires a beast monster plus a fiend monster's material, and it states that this card's name becomes Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast while on the field or in the graveyard. And that's how your graveyard effects for your Mirror Sword Knight and your Cornfield Codal, work, because they require you to control the Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, but this card's name becomes that. while on field or engrave, and also this is how Chimera Fusion is able to recycle itself. But when this card is fusion summoned, you can activate this effect. During the end phase, discard one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, which is really cool. And then also, during your opponent's turn as a quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard to then target a beast, fiend, or illusion monster engraved and special summon it. So this card, while it seems very unassuming, nets you so much advantage, it's not even funny. We also play one copy of Magnum the Reliever, also brand new out of Duelist Nexus, a really great fusion support monster, in my opinion, allowing you to like draw cards or pop stuff on field, which is really nice. Then we play one of the brand new Chimera the Illusion Beast. Just one is more than enough. Usually we're summoning this, but there are times when we get into this and try an OTK, which is really cool. We're on double copies of Guardian Chimera. My apologies for anyone that doesn't already own this card, because boy is it expensive. You can pretty much thank the Chimera stuff out of Nexus for that. But double copies of Guardian Chimera, and it is just absolutely insane in this deck. Moving on to our synchros, we're on one copy of Merry Melffys. You know, being able to sync into this using cards like Hopper Squadron or Melfi Penny to then target a monster the opponent controls, return it to hand is so free. We also play one Desert Locust, again, because we are on Penny and Hopper, which generally synchro during the opponent's turn. So we can make this, force our opponent to lose a card in their hand, and then quick sync into Psyframe Lord Omega to then rip another card out of their hand. Also, Omega likes to return banished cards to the graveyard, so we can return our Cornfield Codals and Mirror Sword Knights back to grave after banishing them for their negates, to then reuse them for their negates again. So I thought that was really cool. Then to round out the last synchro we play is the level 10 synchro. Now, a lot of you are probably going to laugh at this. I'm choosing to play Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree. Now, is this synchro great? No. Could I be playing something better? Absolutely. Do I have like Barons and Chengings and other stuff I could go into? Of course. But I just think that this card looks so awesome, and it's got really good stats in my opinion, and the fact that we can protect it so well with cards like Melfi of the Forest, or I'm sorry, Melfi Hide and Seek, excuse me, allow us this card to become very difficult for the opponent to out, especially since they can't target it except during my main phase 2 only, which means like for the most part this card is targeting protected and can't be destroyed on a 3100 body. Which I find cool. Plus, you can also recycle it off Melfi Hide and Seek's secondary effect. So it's like a recurable level 10 sync where you can constantly keep putting pressure with against your opponent. So again, could you probably play Baron? Yeah, if you have it, run it. But I'm choosing to run this just because I like how it looks, and I just think thematically it fits the overall theme. So one copy of that. Now moving on to our Xyzes. One Melfi of the Forest, followed by one Joyous Melfis. And then to round out the last Xyz is one Onibirmaru the Soul Sweeper, a very great Fiend rank 2 Xyz monster. Just being able to banish opponent's monsters is really nice. And then to round out the last two cards in the extra deck, one copy of Tri-Brigade Farragut the Baron Blossom, and one Tri-Brigade Shureg the Ominous Omen to round out the 15 card extra. Before we wrap things up, let's jump into the side deck briefly. Now again, don't take the side deck as a given. You know, base your side based on how your locals or whatever looks. This is just my side deck for my own personal preference, but I'm choosing to play a playset of Bestial Baldrake, double copies of Alpha in the side for those games where we are forced to go second. Alpha is a great board-breaking card. Then we play one Muddragon of the Swamp, followed by one Garua, Wings of Resonant Life, and that's because they are really good Super Poly targets, of which we are sideboarding double copies of Super Poly. We are also sideboarding double Lightning Storm and one Harpy's Feather Duster. And then to round out the last three cards in our side is a playset of Lost Wind. Only because it's the only trap that we do play, because we don't mainboard any. And this Lost Wind, I think, still has relevancy, and thematically it fits the deck, since, you know, this is basically the Creatures of the Forest deck, or however you want to call it. But Lost Wind, you know, giving the deck some much-needed negation, because if you look at this deck, while it's chock full of disruptions, it doesn't actually have many negates, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the deck can still clap a lot of cheeks, but this is my take on Chimera Melfi. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that deck profile. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like and subscribe so you don't miss on any more of my content that I upload. And if you can get this video to 25 likes, I will bring you a combo tutorial and test hand video. With that being said, guys, thank you all so much. Help me get to my 1K subscriber benchmark. And this is Nick, hitting that end phase. Peace.